Welcome back. I'm Pat, that Halloween movie collector. And with this video, I just did a video where I was explaining how through Halloween 1978, watching the scene where Annie and Laurie are driving in Monte Carlo on their way to go babysitting, they're listening to Don't Fear the Reaper from Blue Oyster Cult, and it's playing, and you can see Michael in the rearview mirror following them, and how that inspired me to do like a deep dive when I heard that, because I loved the song in the movie, and it turned into a, so far, 43-year love affair with Blue Oyster Cult, one of my favorite bands. If you haven't watched the video, go check it out. It's a real short video. Something I put together. I thought it would be fun to share, because I was also talking about the whole SNL scene from back in 2000, where what I need is more cowbell. So sort of played into that a little bit. So I thought, you know what, let's go movie by movie, because I love the scores. While I love the scores for every movie, with the exception of maybe one or two, let's be honest, there's a lot of cool music in each movie. Some movies don't. There's actually, I think there's one on my list here two on my list here that I did that don't have any songs in them. Actually, one has some songs, but when I read the credits at the end, I looked them up, and you wouldn't even know them. It was just probably made up songs just for that specific movie. But we'll get to that. So I figure let's start with let's go from number one. Let's start with the immortal classic, Halloween 1978, and what song is in there that's iconic that I was just talking about. Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. Made me a Blue Oyster Cult fan for the past 43 years. Turned my son into a Blue Oyster Cult fan. Believe it or not, my 21-year-old son probably knows more about Blue Oyster Cult than I do. Started taking him to Blue Oyster Cult shows when he was younger. He's got all the albums. He collected all the vinyl because he loves vinyl. Loves them to death. So there's nothing more iconic for me than that scene.
Ooh, Laurie, Mr. Riddle is 87.
He can still watch.
It's probably all he can do. What's the pumpkin for?
I brought it for Tommy. I figured carving a jack-o'-lantern would keep him occupied.
I also, as a lover of music, I'm a guitar player for, Jesus Christ, 40 years. So that has just created my whole love of Blue Oyster Cult, because hearing that song made me dive deep into their catalog, and their catalog is deep and extremely, extremely cool. There's a lot. They love their sci-fi, so if you like horror sci-fi, there's a lot of songs that they have that are very high, like sci-fi horror related. So if you haven't really done a deep dive, it's worth checking out. And this day and age of streaming and YouTube, you don't even have to buy anything. Just go on YouTube and just look it up, and you don't have to pay for it. Not. Although, be it support the bands. I don't want to be that guy, because I play in bands too. But if you want to give it a shot and see if you like it, everything's on YouTube for free. Just give it a shot. So, best song from Halloween, easily, Don't Fear the Reaper. Halloween 2, same thing here. Not a lot of songs in this, but there's one iconic song which was chosen and actually used in other movies too, to start the film and actually end the film. And that is Mr. Sandman by the Chordettes. Now, I remember thinking, this was the first Halloween movie I saw in the theater back in 1981. And I admittedly didn't know the song. I really wasn't. I was just starting to really get into listening to music, different types of music. I'd been a Kiss fan already since the 70s and rock fan, but didn't know the song, so I didn't think anything of it. But over the years, obviously, it's become so iconic with the film and the franchise itself that I just always thought it was a weird choice. The Chordettes were like a band from the 40s and 50s, trio. It was just very weird, but I see where they were going. Yes, Mr. Sandman, Bring Me a Dream, sort of like This Is All a Nightmare. So I'm thinking that's the way they were thinking, but it's become so iconic with the franchise now that you gotta love it. So easily from part 2, Halloween 2, the Chordettes and Mr. Sandman.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
From Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now, there's same thing here. There's no music. There's music. The score is one of my favorite scores. It's in my top 3 scores. Top 5 scores, I should say, when we did our ranking of John Carpenter soundtracks. Yeah, I'll drop a link up here. Go check it out. That was a lot of fun. But if you want to get technical, what do you hear play through the whole thing? You hear the Silver Shamrock jingle. And what's this Silver Shamrock jingle the tune of? London Bridge. It's London Bridge is falling down. That's what that is the whole time. I mean, most hardcore Halloween fans like myself, and probably some of you Halloween nuts like myself that are watching this, know that is London Bridge, and it was chosen specifically because there's no copyright, so they could use it and didn't have to pay for it. It's open domain. So that's why they crafted it around London Bridge. But that's the song that just plays through the whole thing, drives everybody crazy. You hear it, it's stuck in your head. So I just figured, all right, let's just go with, it's technically London Bridge.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now this has, from what I looked at in the credits, there's nothing listed. I mean, I know the movie inside and out, but I figured the easiest way to do it was go to the credits without having to go back and rewatch all these movies. Not that I haven't seen them a billion times, and I don't remember any songs in there playing in the movie, but I figured let me just check in case I missed something. Don't claim to be perfect, so I figured let's just go right to the credits. And there's no songs listed. Only thing in there is listed is specifically the soundtrack by Alan Howarth, which is great. You know, I love all the soundtracks. So, yeah, no, there's no songs. Halloween 4. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, this has some songs in it. And some songs that over the years I've grown to love a lot of them. They're all, if you get the soundtrack to Halloween 5, the first 5 or 6, actually, you know what, I took it out because I was looking at it. So you figure this is the soundtrack on CD. Now, this is the first release. With each of the soundtracks, especially all the first couple movies, they came out with reissues and anniversary editions. And so you figure there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually 5 songs. Now, these bands, but never really, I don't think they really ever really went anywhere. And I have a feeling, I should have researched it. I have a feeling they're like local Salt Lake City bands because this was filmed in Salt Lake City. So maybe that's where Dominic Gerard picked them up. But there's songs just from listening to the soundtrack, wearing this soundtrack out because I love all the soundtracks. I've grown to love these songs, and it's actually number 1 first song on this list, Romeo, Romeo. So that's, and if take you to the scene, is where Rachel goes back to her house to take a shower, and you hear it playing on the turntable. That's Romeo, Romeo. And that's unfortunately where she meets her demise. Way too early in the film. Really pissed a lot of fans off, myself included. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. But there's a couple other songs on here that are really good too. Like Anything for Money, Dancing on Midnight, Second Time Around, Sporting Woman. You hear a lot of them during the Tower Farm party. If you listen in the background, that's what's playing. But some cool songs nonetheless. But for my taste, the one I like the most out of this film would be Romeo, Romeo. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, the 6th installment. Same thing here. Now, I did not know this was going to be in the film, and I was pleasantly surprised when I went to see it in the theaters because the song is And Fools Shine On. You do hear other Brother Kane songs scattered throughout, but this is the one you hear prominently because at the time that the Brother Kane album Seeds had just come out and had the hit with And Fools Shine On, and I still am, love Brother Kane, one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band from the 90s. And I'm like, holy crap, they're playing Brother Kane in this movie? That's awesome as hell. Saw them live several times back in the 90s, and they were amazing. So I'm pleasantly surprised to hear And Fools Shine On. You hear it? You do hear it during the movie itself?
Yo, check it out. Tonight's gonna be killer.
And then you do hear it in the end credits. So that easily, there's no brainer on that one because just love that song and Brother Kane. Halloween H2O, 20 years later, where Laurie Strode returned. And now, while be it the soundtrack in this is kind of a stinker because of all the shit they went through with John Hoffman. They used some of his, and then they injected some of the Scream soundtrack. So the soundtrack on that is just a complete mess. Actually, there really is no soundtrack release. You have to go get the John Ottman CD of the soundtrack. But you do hear, one band that was very popular at the time What's This Life For from Creed. And I know Creed, they got a lot of hate at the time. I mean, they were very big and they were popular and there was a lot of fans. And I personally liked them. But of course, there's always, every time a band becomes big and there's a new thing out, there's always people that they tend to get a backlash of people that hate for no other reason than just to be hating on them. Albeit Scott Stapp kind of was a drunk at the time or was kind of a dick and had a big mouth, so I can sort of see why it would turn some people off. What's This Life For? Love that song. Great band. Mark Tremonti, great guitar player. Love Alter Bridge. That's the band that he's been doing. Actually, it's basically Creed with a different singer. So if you haven't listened to Alter Bridge, you don't know what you're missing. Go check them out. So that would be the best from H2O.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, what was it?
We come to Halloween Resurrection. You know, if you guys follow this channel and you watch me, you know, I'm not a big fan of this movie by no means. And there's no songs that play in this. There's actually a few songs that I did look in the credits, but they were just, I think they were just either local things, and there's nothing to even mention about it, because I even tried looking up the bands and I couldn't find them to do it like a deeper dive. And then, you know, like there's that music that is playing. There's a couple of different songs when they're at the college and when they're at the house, and it's just nothing to mention. So nothing of note. So Halloween Resurrection, nothing. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007 remake. Love it or hate it. There was some great songs. It opens right up with one of my favorite bands of all time. It opens right up with God of Thunder from Kiss, and there he is wearing a Kiss t-shirt. So I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. And it's sort of it started a little bit for me, but then got better after in the second act and the third act. I do like it. And there's a bunch of different songs in this movie that you could have chosen from. Like I was torn between two, so I do have two honorable mentions, which I'll mention at the end of this list. But the most iconic one, I would think, would have to be "Love Hurts" from Nazareth, when little Michael Myers, Dave Fair, is sitting outside, and because his sister kind of dumped on him and wasn't going to take him trick-or-treating, and he's got the whole backstory of his family life was all shit. And you hear "Love Hurts," and that's an iconic song from Nazareth. And one of the songs I love Nazareth too. Love 70s music, that's why. So I kind of chose that one, but I do have an honorable mention, which I will mention at the end of this list, for Rob Zombie's Halloween one. But that's mine.
Love hurts, love scars, love wounds, and more.
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Same thing here. Rob Zombie, you know, he's a musician. Love him. I love all his music. So he knows music. So he does inject some good songs into his films. And this one was, there was a few to choose from. And obviously the most obvious one would be Nights in White Satin from the Moody Blues. But honestly, it played so much of the movie, it kind of got annoying. So I'm just like, I'm not picking that. But the one thing, you can do the same thing here. You either love this movie or you hate it. I'm sort of in the middle. I don't hate it and I don't love it. It's all right. It's a fun entry. You can watch it. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But there's a lot of songs in here. My favorite thing, honestly, is the soundtrack in this. Because if you go to the Phantom Jam, the band that's playing Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures, was a band that was put together, you know, through Rob Zombie, and they were a psychobilly band. And they actually have a CD out, you know, Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures. And the songs are awesome. If you like, you know, sort of Rob Zombie stuff, but like it's more psychobilly, progressive country psychobilly shit, like Mojo Nixon type stuff like that, and Reverend Horton Heat, go get this CD. You'll love it. So I like Transylvania Terror Train off the soundtrack, and that's Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures. They're playing it at the Phantom Jam when you see the girls and they're dressed in their Rocky Horror Picture Show outfits, and that's playing in the background. Love that song. I just love that whole CD. So that's a recommend. Go check it out.
White knuckles on the wheel and the smell of black coal. 100 miles of track and the wind at your back. We see a car full of dead souls.
And here we start the David Gordon Green trilogy, Halloween 2018. Blockbuster horror film. And same thing here. It's soundtrack, is when we did our rankings, it came in number 2 with me because I still listen to the soundtrack. John Carpenter, Cody Carpenter, Daniel Davies killed it with the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing. And there's really no songs. There's no songs in this film that I went and looked back to. So I sort of said, you know what? There is a song if you... Well, it plays during the end credits towards the very end of the credits, and also plays in the car with the dad and the dad and the son that are coming back from hunting. The kid's going on about how he's missing his dance lessons, where I don't understand what that was all about. It was actually, if you read the novelizations, it's different. They're talking basketball, if I remember correctly. If you read the novelization, that would have played out a little better than the whole dance thing, which was just odd. But if you listen, you hear "Close to Me" playing in the background. That song was written by John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis. That is the song that she is singing in Halloween '78. I wish you had you all alone, just the two of us. If you listen to it, you can hear it.
You all right?
That I chose that because purely for nostalgia reasons, and that's really the only song you hear playing in it. You don't hear any other songs. And I looked in the credits to see if anything was there in case I missed something, and there wasn't. So, Close to Me. Halloween Kills. Same thing here. Another great soundtrack from Carpenter and Company. And there was a few songs in here, but I had to go with, you only hear it in the end credits. So you have to go all the way to the end, but I love it. Hunter's Moon from the band Ghost. So either you like Ghost, you don't like Ghost. I like them. They're like pop metal, artsy music. So, and Hunter's Moon is great. I love that song. So we only hear it at the end. Still technically in the movie, and I'm trying to think what the hell else was in the film. I don't know. There was probably something else. I'm just don't remember it. But that's what I had to choose. Ghost, Hunter's Moon.
It's a hunter's moon.
And here we come to the end of the trilogy. Halloween Ends, divisive film. Same thing here. You either love it or you hate it, or you're in the middle. I'm kind of in the middle. But same thing here. There's actually, well, I'll get to it. There's an honorable mention in this that I really wanted to use, but I thought it fitting to bookend this whole list with where it started. Don't Fear the Reaper, Blue Oyster Cult. That's how the trilogy and this version of Myers ends. With them going out at the visual of the mask laying on Laurie's coffee table. And hearing Don't Fear the Reaper. How perfect is that? So that had to be my choice. As much as there's another song in here I do love, and I'm going to mention it because it's part of my honorable mentions. But that was the perfect way to bookend this storyline, because they're going to reboot it at some point. They'll do something because it made too much money. They're just going to let it simmer for a couple of years, which they should do. Honorable mentions. So I have 2 honorable mentions. One from, like I mentioned earlier, from Rob Zombie's Halloween 1, the first one in 2007. The scene where Linda and Bob are banging in the Myers house upstairs, and in the radio, what do you hear? You hear Halloween 2 from the Misfits. I'm a big Misfits fan. I love Misfits. I love Glenn Danzig. Love Samhain, or should be pronounced Samhain, but everybody always calls it Samhain. Love that. It was in the background while they were hanging out. So that was a tough one because I really wanted to choose that, but
I'm the one that just did all the heavy lifting. All right, I'll go.
Went with Love Hurts. I could have actually picked Don't Fear the Reaper too, because right after when Bob goes to get the beer and gets killed by Myers, she changes the channel and Don't Fear the Reaper comes on. But I figured that was mentioned enough. And Love Hurts, I think the scene in that is a little bit, you remember a little bit more because of the young Michael Myers. But Halloween 2 from the Misfits, that is my honorable mention. One of them. And from the last movie, Halloween Ends, my other honorable mention I was pleasantly surprised to hear when I was in the theater is the scene where Allison and Corey go to that party at the bar. I forget what the name of the bar was in the movie, but that's where Lindsay works. And they're out there dancing in their masks, and what's playing? Halloween from the Dead Kennedys. I love old school punk rock and love the Dead Kennedys. saw them, albeit this is the original Dead Kennedys with the original lead singer Jello Biafra, who has been in the band in many, many moons. But I went to see him a few years ago, took my son because he's a big Dead Kennedys fan, and with their other singer, Skip Skipperson, sounded good. But I was like, I'm in the theater with my daughter, and I'm like, looking at her, she's like looking at me, she's like, what's the matter, Dad? I'm like, it's the Dead Kennedys. I'm like, holy shit. So that was pleasantly surprising to hear that in the film. So those are my 2 honorable mentions. So those are all the songs that I chose from each film. If I missed any, or there's one that you think is a little bit better, by all means, comment below. Let me know. Because some of them do have other songs in the films, and maybe one of those songs may stand out to you more, and may be a little bit more memorable from that specific film. Let me know. I'd like to hear. Make sure you like the video. Helps people find us. And hopefully you find some other content on this channel. If you're a Halloween guy, if you're a horror guy, if you like music, if you like just a bunch of idiots doing podcasts and having beer and breaking each other's chops, it's all here. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Helps a brother out. Don't cost nothing. And come back. There's going to be a lot. There's always a lot of Halloween content here. Just look around this basement of this mental case. Hope you enjoyed this list. It was a blast to put together. Like I said, be sure to comment below. Let me know what your choices were. And until then, I will talk to you soon.